Okay, now the third time frame I want to focus on is today, but I just want to go through like a checklist. And when I mention the item, just tell me whether there's been any substantial changes made to that particular item so we can go through this, all right? You with me?
Yes.
All right. Interior lighting. And the time frame is between the shooting of the videotape and today. Okay?
I moved a lamp. And other than maybe lamp bulbs, I moved a lamp.
Okay, and what lamp did you move?
A lamp out of my former living room into my TV room.
Okay, and what was the purpose of moving that lamp?
Just to give it a different look.
And did you replace any light bulbs since the shooting of the videotape that you specifically recall?
I'm sure we may have, but I can't specifically recall.
Do you recall either yourself or directing someone to replace light bulbs, increasing or decreasing the wattage of those bulbs?
The lamp that we moved, I think, only had 2 bulbs in it, and since it's one of my favorite lamps, probably the first one I purchased. And when we moved it to put it in another room, I think I filled it up with bulbs just to, to get the full effect of the lamp. I don't know if we've kept it that way. I think we burned 2 or 3 of the bulbs in it now, but when I first did it, I know I wanted to look at the full effect of the lamp.
Okay. Other than this lamp, any other changes inside your home between shooting the videotape and today with respect to lighting?
I may have added a lily pod lamp to my bedroom.
Okay, when you say I may have, do you have a specific recollection between this time frame adding it?
No, I don't know if it was there before we shot the video or after we shot. It is there today, I know that.
Okay.
It's by my bed.
Was this a lamp that you added specifically for shooting the video?
No.
Okay, was it a lamp just for aesthetic purposes or lighting purposes?
Yeah, it's a lamp that was in a closet because some of the shades were missing. And I just wanted to use it.
Was the lamp, do you remember exactly when you pulled it out of the closet and started using it?
No.
Before or after the video?
I don't know.
Okay. Your bedroom, do you have drapes on the windows in your bedroom?
Yes.
Okay. Those drapes in the same condition now that they were as of June 12, '94?
Yes.
Do you have a practice whether you close them or leave them open?
I close them at night.
Okay. When you're sleeping?
Yes.
Otherwise you leave them open?
Well, normally when I go up to my bedroom, I close the drapes because I don't know when I'm going to fall asleep. And I don't want to get up and have to, close them.
Do you have a practice during the summertime with respect to whether you sleep with windows open or closed?
No way, no. Not one way or the other. No.
Not one way. So sometimes you may open them, sometimes you'll close them.
Well, I don't have a window to open in my bedroom. I do have a door I could open. There's no windows really to open upstairs in my bedroom.
Okay. Again, the same time period, except I want to focus now on
well, we're back to the other time.
Wait.
Same time period. Again, I'm talking now about shooting the video in present day. Focusing now on exterior lighting. Any changes?
Well, I know that they've added since June 12th.
No, the video in December is the time period.
I don't think any changes since the video.
So the lighting should be substantially similar to as it was as of shooting the videotape, correct?
Yes.
Foliage? I mean, I'm not talking about natural growth. I'm talking about where you have specifically put in plants or had things removed.
Well, I've thinned out my trees, not in the front yard, but in the backyard. I've had those pruned. I don't know if that was before or after the video. I can't recall. I think along the walk drive that goes into Rockingham, he may have planted some ground flowers, but I don't know if that was before or after either.
Okay. Same time frame, but the question is with respect to locks.
I have no knowledge of us changing any locks.
Okay, so presumably they're the same now as they were as of shooting the videotape in December.
Yes.
Okay. Flooring inside the foyer?
I think I added a rug.
You did that since the videotape?
Yes.
Okay. Was that just for aesthetic purposes?
Yes.
Okay. Carpet inside the house?
It's the same.
Window coverings?
They're the same.
The 2 gates along the southern pathway between shooting the videotape and the present time?
I have no idea.
Okay, how about Kalen's room? Same time frame?
Since the video, I think we got different pictures in there. And, yeah, and a leak has been added. No. I know pictures are a little different. They may have been spruced up since then a little bit. I think for definite, for sure, some pictures have been added.
Mm-hmm. By the way,
I don't know if they were there before. They were there since the video. Yeah, pictures have been added in there.
how about Arnell's room? Since the video, any changes either inside the room or outside of the room?
Since the video?
Yes.
Well, I don't know when she moved. So I don't know. So when she moved, she took most of her stuff out of there.
Since the videotape, any changes to the window outside Cato Kalen's bathroom?
Not that I know of.
How well, did you make any changes or authorize any?
No.
Okay. How about outside Arnell's room?
I got to say this. Any repairs that are done, even though my people who work for me know to make the repair if it needs to be done. So in a sense, that's all authorized by me because I got to pay for it. But
okay, well, let me ask
no
a different
specific,
way.
No specific knowledge of anybody doing any of this.
Were there any repairs made under your direction? Were you specifically asked them to make repairs with respect to Kalen's window?
No.
Okay. How about Arnell's windows?
Not that I know of.
Okay. In the entire time period that you have lived at Rockingham, has anyone ever, who was in Arnell's room or Cato's room, ever reported noises, presumably emanating along the southern pathway?
I can't recall.
Okay.
We're going to put you
I want to go back to an exhibit that was previously marked, I believe as 1. Not sure. What number do we have on that?
6.
6? Exhibit 6, which was the June 15, 94. It's dated June 15, 94. To whom it may concern letter, which I think you've indicated was actually on 6/17/94. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Mr. Simpson, at the time that you drafted this letter, had you heard from any source, excluding conversations with lawyers, that the police theorized that a killer or killers had left blood at the Bundy crime scene?
I don't recall. There was so much on TV. I'm sure I probably heard something.
You don't have to speculate. If you don't recall,
I'm
you don't
sure.
recall.
Yeah, I don't recall. There was so much going on and being said at that period of time. I don't know.
Well, do you recall at some point learning that the police were theorizing that blood had been left by a killer or killers at the Bundy crime scene?
I may have.
Do you remember how you learned that information?
No.
Do you remember when you learned that information?
Not particularly, no.
Do you remember whether it was before or after you began drafting this letter?
I don't know.
At some point after the murders, did you learn that a glove was found on your property?
As I said, I heard so much that day and during that week that I'm sure I'd heard about I know I heard about a glove and ski masks.
When did you hear that for the first time?
I believe the first day.
Okay. I mean, that would be a pretty significant piece of information that evidence linked with the crime scene was found on your property, right?
I don't know if anybody linked anything at that point.
Well, what did you hear exactly about the glove?
I don't know. I was hearing everything. I was hearing bloody ski masks. I don't know if I heard glove the first day. I know I heard bloody ski mask right away.
Well, when you said you heard bloody ski masks, did you hear a bloody ski mask was found on your property?
That's what they were reporting, something about a bloody ski mask,
And
I believe.
and when you first heard, strike that, At some point, did you determine or learn that a bloody ski mask was not found on your property, that that was a false report?
At some point, yes.
Do you remember when that was?
No.
Do you remember what evidence, if any, you knew about at the time that you began drafting this letter?
I didn't know what was evidence and what wasn't evidence. I was hearing everything that was everything that was being reported, I was hearing it all. So whatever was being reported that week, I heard it.
Well, do you remember hearing about any evidence that you believe may tend to implicate you?
Well, the point that he's just made is he didn't know what was evidence and what wasn't, so your question is without foundation.
Did you hear about any information that may tend to implicate you in these murders?
I heard they were going to arrest me, and that was the information that was implicating me.
Okay, that's the first time in your mind there was any information that was implicating you in these murders when you actually heard that you were going to be arrested?
I heard everything on the news. I heard newscasters theorizing and making claims about things that I didn't think were true.
Okay, well, what reports do you remember by newscasters
Well, one
regarding information that you didn't think was true?
Davila, Bob Davila, somebody for Channel 4.
Avila?
Avila. He was doing a report about when I arrived at the hotel in Chicago, I was loud and boisterous as if I was attempting to draw attention to myself. And I'm saying that was not true. There was nobody in the lobby except the people who were greeting me, and I was dragging when I walked through the door. So, I mean, other than specifics, I know that was a specific.
Okay,
There was a lot of that type of stuff being said.
Is that a report that you heard at Rockingham?
I may have. I just know that week I heard it and it was on TV.
And that's a report that specifically sticks out in your mind as you're testifying here today. Is that true?
Because that was something I knew was not true.
Okay, I mean, you knew for a fact that that was totally inaccurate. Is that correct?
Correct.
And because it was inaccurate and it was being reported on television, it's something that you have a specific recollection of as you're sitting here testifying during this deposition. Is that true?
That one, yeah. There was a lot of stuff, and I can't recall a lot of it, but that was one that, you know why? It may have been the first thing I heard.
Okay.
And then so much was being said and implied. After that, it was almost like I had to kind of turn off, and my focus went to my family.
Okay. Well, I just want to make sure I understand your testimony, which I understand isn't the test, but for me it's going to be the premise of this question. With respect to this report that you heard from the reporter, Bob Avila, was there something about the way in which he reported the information, or was it the substance of the report that caused you to have some difficulty with his reporting?
It was a lie.
Okay, it was a lie.
Yes.
Okay. Now, are there any other reports relative to information in the case that you specifically recall as you sit here today because you felt the information was false or untrue?
I can't give you specifics, but if you take tapes of that week, there was just so much being said that so much I didn't know if it was true or false, and there was numerous things that I knew were not true, and as they were reporting it. And so there were things that I heard that week that were just you know, I just didn't believe them.
Well, Mr. Simpson, you knew that they were reporting that your blood was actually found at the crime scene, didn't you?
I don't know if they reported that week. I'm not sure if they reported that week, but whenever they reported it, I was aware of it. I don't recall if that week that was reported or not.
Okay, well, the first time that you heard that your blood was found at the crime scene, or claim that your blood was found at the crime scene, was through the press, isn't that true?
I would imagine so.
Okay, and you knew that to be absolutely false, isn't that true?
I knew that I hadn't deposited any blood at Nicole's house that night.
You knew that it was virtually impossible for your blood to be at that crime scene, isn't that true?
I don't know if it's impossible for me to have blood at Nicole's house or not.
Well,
but I knew.
Well, let him answer the question.
Excuse me.
I knew that, and I don't know if I knew this that week. I'm telling you as I know today. I knew I didn't deposit any blood at Nicole's house that day. So that's what I know today. I don't recall in the scheme of things when this blood drops became an issue in all of this. I don't recall if that was that week or the following week or what.
So you're saying that when you first heard that report, you weren't certain whether you had deposited blood at the crime scene?
Wait a minute, at the crime scene? That isn't what he said.
I'm just asking. Is that what
No,
you're saying?
I was saying that, as I can tell you now, today, I did not deposit any blood that day at Nicole's house. It just never, it didn't happen. So that's what I know for a fact today. During the course of all of this, when whose blood was where, I don't know when I found that out. I don't know if that was that week, the next week. I don't know if it was weeks later. I really don't know.
Well, when you first heard that report about your blood being at the crime scene, in your mind, did you know that that wasn't possible?
I know it was impossible for me to have deposited that blood that night at anywhere, if it was my blood or wherever they may have found blood of mine. I knew it was impossible for me to have deposited that blood at Nicole's house that night.
That's because you weren't there, right?
Correct.
And you weren't bleeding on her property. Is that true?
Not that day, certainly not, no.
Well, some other day, do you recall bleeding on the Bundy property?
I do recall at some point, and it may have been when we first got Cato, the dog, I do recall at one point Sydney or Justin getting me I don't know if it was Flintstone or something, Band-Aid. I just don't recall when. That could have been months previous to this. I just don't recall.
Well, did you cut yourself and were you dripping blood up the walkway at the Bundy property?
At that time? I don't know.
At any time prior to June 12,
Not that I'm aware of.
1994, did you ever drip blood at up the Bundy walkway?
Not that I'm aware of.
Is it possible?
Anything's possible, but not that I'm aware of.
You have a specific recollection of having the kids get you a Band-Aid because you cut yourself at the Bundy property?
I don't know. I remember having I think a Flintstones. I'm not sure. One of these Band-Aids. I remember Sydney getting me one. It may have had something to do with Nicole closing my hand in her car door.
Was that an
Which
accident?
happened yeah. But I don't recall dripping blood at that time. I know it was like a tear or something, but I don't recall dripping blood at that time.
You're pointing to the pinky in your
I think
left
so.
hand.
I think it was one of my hands. I can't even remember what hand it was, but the window part of her thing, she closed the door on my hand.
And do you remember the reporter that first made that report that was reporting your blood being found at the Bundy crime scene?
No.
Do you remember what channel it was on?
No.
Do you remember where you were when you first heard that report?
No.
Do you remember saying anything in response to the TV or anyone else in the room when you first heard that report?
No.
Did you have a verbal response when you first heard the report that your blood was being found? Your blood had been found at the crime scene?
Possibly.
Okay. What did you say?
I don't know.
You have no recollection whatsoever?
No.
When did you first learn about the location of the blood drops found at Rockingham? Do you understand that question?
No.
Okay. As you sit here today, do you know where blood drops were found at Rockingham?
Yes.
Okay. For example, they were found in the foyer. Is that correct?
I'm told that, yes.
Well, when you say you're told that, you've seen actual photographs that have identified the location in the foyer where the blood drops were found. Isn't that true?
If you
Yes.
put blood drops there, they're not found.
Excuse me?
If blood drops are placed there, they're not found. But go ahead.
Well, aside from the semantics, you've seen photographs where there are identifying marks indicating where blood drops were found in your foyer. Is that true?
I've seen those photographs.
And similarly, you have seen photographs where identifying marks have been placed on blood drops found in your driveway. Is that true?
That's correct.
Okay. Now, Mr. Simpson, when is the first time that you learned or had any information relative to the location of blood drops found at Rockingham?
Some of it, I think I learned upon arriving at my house.
Okay. And how did you learn that?
A police officer, I don't know if it was Phillips, when I was handcuffed by the house, I kept saying, why am I handcuffed? And somebody said something about blood. There's blood here, and that we got blood there, we got blood here, and I saw these cards, and I assumed, I guess I made an assumption that maybe that was some blood drops.
Okay. So there was some discussion in your police statement about blood being found at Rockingham. Is that correct?
I believe so, yes.
And in fact, you knew before you even went down to the police station that there was blood found. At least you speculated that there may have been blood found at Rockingham because you saw cards identifying blood spots. Is that
I
true?
really didn't speculate anything. This guy said blood was found, or there's blood here, and there's blood there, or something. And
Who said that?
I believe it was Phillips, or it was whoever said it had a mustache.
They have white cards identifying where the drops were?
I don't know. There was just, yes, there were cards. I don't know if they were white cards or what, but there were things, you know, sitting in spots. And I don't know. The guy just said that, and you know, that wasn't prevalent. That wasn't foremost on my mind. That's, you know, that wasn't what I was focusing on.
Well, you came back from Chicago because your wife had been killed. Is that correct, Mr. Simpson?
Because my ex-wife had been killed, yes.
Okay. And then you were told, as you entered the property after being handcuffed, that blood was found on your property. Is that true, sir?
Correct.
Did you tell him, hey, I cut myself last night, maybe that's from me?
No.
Did you offer any explanation at that time with respect to those blood drops?
No.
Did you conclude in your own mind that perhaps those blood drops were left by you because you had cut your finger
No.
the night before?
No.
You had no thoughts, one way or another, how those blood drops got there?
I didn't think about blood drops. I was thinking about Nicole, my kids, and why was I handcuffed?
Well, all the way back from Chicago, you were making phone calls to a number of different people trying to investigate exactly what happened. Isn't that true?
No, I was trying to have people go by my house, see what my family was doing, what was going on with my family, and yes, information. I like to know what was going on, what happened. And still to this day want to know what happened.
And when you saw the blood drops, you made no statements whatsoever with respect to those possibly coming from you from the night before to Detective Phillips.
That's correct.
Did you ask him whether he knew how those blood drops got there?
No.
Did you ask him how long they believed they were there?
No.
Did you ask him any questions whatsoever with respect to how those blood drops got there?
I asked him, why am I handcuffed?
Well, you saw blood drops on your driveway, right?
No.
You just indicated that you were told that blood drops were on your driveway.
No, the guy said there's blood around here, or blood here, and there's a lot of blood there.
Well, did
So
you
I
ask him,
didn't
hey,
see-
did it come from a murder?
I didn't ask him anything. I don't know what to ask him. I want to know where my kids are. I want to know why am I handcuffed? Where are my kids? Why can't I go in my house? Those are the things I wanted to know.
So you had no interest in finding out any information with respect to blood drops found
Don't answer that.
on your property?
That's
At that
argumentative.
time, no.
Okay. Prior to Detective Phillips telling you about blood drops on your...
If it was Phillips, I'm not sure it was Phillips. There's another guy I see sometimes, and it could have been that guy, but whoever did it had a mustache. I wasn't paying attention to him. There was so much going on. And as things were happening, you know, my lawyer was there, and Van Adder was there. And, you know, it was a tough.
Let's
time.
kind of hone in here and see if we can identify possibly who you spoke with. It could have been Phillips, is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay, there's someone else that was there that it could have been?
There was a lot of people there, but there's one other guy I have seen since, and when I think about it, I wonder, was that Phillips or this other guy?
That spoke to you about the blood drops?
Yes.
Okay, and was the other person a detective or a uniformed officer?
Detective.
And can you describe him?
He has a mustache, that's all I can tell you.
Have you ever learned his identity?
I may have seen him and heard his name, but I can't recall now.
Did he testify at the criminal trial?
No.
Was he ever in the court?
I can't recall.
Okay. Other than having a mustache, do you have any other information that would help identify him?
No.
Any other description of him other than having a mustache?
White guy with a mustache.
How tall was he?
I don't know.
What color was his hair?
I wasn't paying attention to him. I don't really study guys.
Okay. Was it Detective Lang?
No.
You're able to definitively rule out that it was Detective Lang?
No.
Was it Detective Van Adder?
No.
Able to rule out that it was Van Adder?
Yes.
Was it Detective Furman?
No.
Are you able to rule out that it was Detective Furman?
Yes.
Okay. You know it was a detective, though.
Well, he was on my property and on a suit, and I assumed.
Did he have a
was
badge?
detective. I didn't see a badge.
Did he
I didn't see
represent
anything
himself?
else.
Excuse me.
Sorry.
You guys are going to have to slow down a little bit for me here, please.
I'm sorry, Mr. Simpson. Go ahead. Finish your answer.
I didn't
No,
see
I
that.
didn't see a badge.
Did he represent himself as a Los Angeles police officer or detective?
I don't recall that.
Going back to Exhibit 6, now when you wrote this letter, you indicated that you were in a lot of pain from the loss of Nicole. Is that true?
Yes.
And you felt suicidal. Is that true?
I wanted the pain to stop.
And a secondary component to your feelings at that time were other things. There were other things going on, I think, is how you've described them earlier. Is that correct?
I don't know.
Well,
Everything was going on. I was in pain. I wanted the pain to stop. That's all I can really say about it. I was in a lot of pain.
okay. And the pain, as you've indicated already, is because of Nicole, the loss of Nicole.
I would say that was obviously the genesis and the major portion of it all, yes.
And were you beginning to feel like you were being targeted as the person that committed these murders?
Yes,
And was that based upon news reports of evidence that was being developed in the case?
I believe so.
And you knew at the time that you were told about these murders and thereafter that the Los Angeles Police Department was conducting an investigation. Isn't that true?
Yes,
And I take it, Mr. Simpson, that you assumed that they would continue the investigation and develop evidence and leads and follow those leads in connection with this case. True?
yes.
At the time of the strike, that as of June 12, 1994, did you have any concerns about the competency of the Los Angeles Police Department in conducting murder investigations?
I didn't give it any thought.
Okay. Did you assume that they would competently follow through with any leads that they developed in connection with the case?
At the time, I didn't give it any thought.
Did you have any reason to believe they wouldn't?
No reason whatsoever.
Did you have any reason to believe that they would not ultimately locate or identify the person or persons responsible for these murders?
At the time, I didn't think about that.
Okay. Well, were you confident that they would conduct an investigation and hopefully find the person that murdered your wife, ex-wife, and Ron Goldman?
How can you be confident if you didn't think about it?
I have, I read a lot, and I know that normally they don't. In most cases, they don't. So, that was just knowledge I had from, years of reading, and, in most cases, they don't.
Well, Mr. Simpson, during the
I don't
first...
know if I thought about that day. I'm pretty sure I didn't think about that then.
When you talk about everything going on, you're talking about press reports that are intimating that you killed Nicole and Ron Goldman, right?
You mean to the exclusion of everything else? That's what he's talking about?
No. When you said earlier that the reason why you were suicidal, you gave two reasons. One was the pain associated with the loss of Nicole. The second reason was what you characterize as everything. I want to figure out what is the everything. And in relationship to that, you've indicated that you began to hear press reports about you possibly being the #1 target or the suspect in connection with these murders. Is that true?
Now, which one do you want him to answer? Don't answer that question. There's about 4 questions in there. And that's compound. Don't answer that.
Well, were you concerned, Mr. Simpson, about the press reports that were indicating that you were the #1 suspect in connection with these murders?
I don't know if I was concerned. I was hurt by it all. And it just added to the hurt that I was feeling.
Okay. And did you believe that the information that was being reported as tending to indicate that you had some responsibility was false?
Yes.
And let's take, for example, the information relative to your blood being found at Bundy. Did you have a belief that any information that reported your blood being found at Bundy was false?
I don't know if I knew or heard that way, so I can't answer that because I don't have any, I can't tell you when I heard that. That could have been 3 weeks later or 4 weeks later as far as I know. So that wasn't anything that I could focus on right now and say that was a part of it.
As you sit here today, is the only report that you recall indicating anything about you in connection with these murders, the NBC report referring to your demeanor and attitude when you got to Chicago?
I'm sorry, ask the question again.
As you sit here today, is the only news report that you recall in this first week that you have a specific recollection of the NBC News report by Jim Avila about you coming to Chicago being loud and boisterous? Is that the only one you recall?
I have a specific recollection that there were numerous things being said that week that gave an impression that I committed this crime. I do remember that. Avila's I remember because I believe it was the first thing I heard to be that I knew personally was totally false.
Okay. And did you perceive his report as having a tendency to implicate you in these murders?
It's the way it sounded to me, yes.
Okay. Is there any other report that you have a specific recollection of other than the Avila report?
Right now, I can't at this moment not say. I just know there were numerous things that week.
Well, when you say numerous things, what is the numerous? What reports,
know.
what items were being reported that you were responding to or concerned about?
If you, maybe you should go and listen to all the reports that week, and you'll find them. I have no specific memory right now. I know they were there. I know I heard them. And I know that at the time, all of it was causing me more pain.
Well, as of the writing of this letter, did you assume that eventually this would all be sorted out and that the murders would eventually be found or identified?
I certainly hope so.
Okay. And you had every reason to believe that that would happen, didn't you?
I certainly hope so.
Okay. And that was your frame of mind at the time that you wrote this letter, isn't that true?
When I wrote this letter, my frame of mind was stopping the pain that I was feeling. Everything else was, everything else at the time, everything else was almost irrelevant to me. I just wanted to stop the way I was feeling.
Well, part of that pain could be alleviated if they identified the murderers or the murderer, isn't that true?
I don't know. Even that day I was feeling so much pain that I don't know what could have alleviated it.
It was on the 17th that you were feeling this pain?
I was feeling it all week, but it came to a crescendo on the 17th.
Well, did something happen in particular on the 17th that brought it to a crescendo?
I think that I was being arrested, yes.
Okay, so prior to the 17th, did you have any occasion where you began to think about suicide?
Maybe.
When did it first cross your mind?
I don't know if it ever crossed my mind. I just know I wanted the pain to stop, and at that point on the 17th, I wanted to be with Nicole, and that's what I attempted to do.
Well, when did you first think about doing anything affirmatively to stop the pain?
I don't know. It was kind of a spontaneous thing. At just a moment, I remember looking at AC. I said, "Take me to Nicole's grave." I don't know when, at any point in any of that anything ever became affirmative in my mind. If it had, I'd be dead right now. So I can't say that it ever got affirmative at any point, but I know I just wanted to stop the pain.
Well, you just mentioned that you looked at AC and said, "Take me to Nicole's grave." Was that after you learned that you were going to be arrested?
Yes.
And would it be fair to say that that was the first time that you decided to do anything affirmatively to stop the pain?
It was the first time that I wanted to go to Nicole's grave, yes.
Okay. And
I did want to do that.
Did you begin to draft the letter after you were advised that you were going to be arrested?
Yes.
Okay, so prior to that information, prior to learning that information, you hadn't undertaken any effort to draft this letter. Is that true?
That's correct.
You also said that you made some amendments, or an amendment to your will. Is that correct?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. And you don't recall what you changed or what you were going to alter, if anything?
That's correct.
Do you recall whether any of those changes included making dispositions to the Goldmans?
I know that didn't. I know that's wrong.
Any of those changes include dispositions to the Browns?
No.
To your children?
I don't know. I think it just had to do with my family.
Okay, when you say your family, you're talking about Sydney, Justin, or Ornell and Jason, or?
Yeah, basically my mother. my family.
Was there anything in there that stated anything about the Browns?
In my will, I don't believe so.
Was there anything, whether it be a dispositive provision or not, just a statement
I don't believe
or
so.
comment?
I
Let me
don't
finish my
believe so.
question. Whether it be a dispositive provision or not, whether there was a statement or comment mentioning the Browns.
I don't believe so.
How about Goldman's?
No, definitely not.
You're positive there's no mention in the amendment with respect to the Goldman's, is that correct?
Positive.
I want you to look at, if you would, Mr. Simpson, at Exhibit 6. And in large part, as you've already indicated, this letter, or this to whom it may concern letter, was drafted because of the pain that you were experiencing from losing Nicole, right?
Don't answer that. You've answered it 6 times.
Prior to drafting this letter, had you heard news reports about any marital discord between you and Nicole?
Yes.
Okay. Do you recall any specific reports?
No.
Do you recall what you were specifically told or what you heard?
No.
Do you recall the general tenor of the reports?
Negative, but no, not anything specific to other than that.
Well, when you say negative, what do you mean by that?
I know that I felt negative. I felt it was a negative report. I felt it was negative.
Okay.
It made me feel more pain.
Did the reports include claims that you had battered Nicole?
I don't recall.
Did they include reports that you had beat Nicole?
I don't recall.
Did they include reports that you had choked Nicole?
I don't recall.
Do you recall any of the specifics as they relate to your relationship with Nicole that were being reported?
Right as this day, I don't recall the specifics, but there was a lot of stuff, and I just don't recall the specifics.
Well, the first paragraph of this exhibit is really defending your relationship, isn't it?
I
Well,
don't
that's
know.
your characterization.
Well, I'm asking for your state of mind.
I don't
Isn't that
know.
what you
Right
were doing?
now, as of the day, my state of mind then was to stop the pain or whatever the hell was going on in my life. I was in a lot of pain at the time, and you know, I was just not the way I normally am.
Well, the first paragraph of Exhibit 6 relates to your explanation as to the problems you had with Nicole, true?
Let me read it. I don't think so. No, I don't agree with you there.
Well, you're describing a relationship that has ups and downs in the first paragraph, aren't you?
No, I think I'm describing a relationship that had come to a place where we were both comfortable with who we are and where we were, and we were going on with our lives.
And in fact, you indicate on the 10th line down that you mutually agreed to go, we mutually agreed to go our separate ways. See that?
Yes,
Is that an accurate statement?
I believe so.
And are you referencing the time frame of April, May 1994?
No, I'm doing either Mother's Day or the day after Mother's Day of May.
1994.
Yes.
That's the time period that you're referring to.
Well, that's when we split and had no problems and were, you know, that's when we sat and talked and went our separate ways.
Okay. And the adjective that you used, you mutually agreed.
Yeah.
That's a fair characterization of how you
Yeah,
left
she was
it.
acceptance of it. She was very acceptant. She wouldn't go to therapy, so she was acceptant of it. That was a choice she made.
Mhm. When do you first recall reading any press articles that said anything about your relationship with Nicole in a negative context?
Well, months after all of this.
Months after the murders?
Yes.
So during the week,
Maybe not months, weeks after the murder.
well, up until June 17, then you didn't read any press reports that spoke negatively about you and Nicole?
No,
Is that true?
that's true.
Were you anticipating then that there were going to be press reports subsequent to June 17, 1994 that portrayed your relationship with Nicole in a negative way?
No, that was a tenor I got off TV, reports that I heard on TV.
Prior to June 17, 1994.
That's correct.
Did you read anything that related to a negative relationship between you and Nicole?
I didn't read anything.
Okay. I mean, the press report, newspaper?
I didn't read anything.
You didn't read anything at all that week?
That's correct.
You got all your information from TV?
That's correct.
Were there particular stations that you watched?
I'm sure all of them.
You were just looking for information?
Yes.
You wanted to obtain information relative to these murders?
Yes.
Were you following the investigation?
Only what I saw on TV when I was watching TV.
Were you doing anything else to develop information relative to the investigation other than watching TV?
At this time, no.
Were you continuing to contact the police department to determine the status of their investigation?
I believe my lawyer was. I wasn't.
Did you personally contact the police department?
No.
Let me finish my question. Did you personally contact the police department after June 13, 1994 in an effort to learn the status of the investigation?
I think my lawyer was under my employment, and he was doing that. My concern was to bury Nicole and try to get through the week with my kids and deal with what I was trying to deal with there, the pain of it all.
The lawyer that you
My
thought,
place.
I'm sorry.
I wasn't in a place that first week I had family to consider and I had myself to consider, and I wasn't into an investigative mode that week.
Okay. So it would be your state of mind was really one wanting to stay with the family and
My state of mind was to get through the week and for Nicole to be buried and hopefully that my kids would be fine through it, which they were.
and that was your focus.
That was my focus.
And that focus made it difficult for you to do anything else.
It was tough. I mean, yeah, it was tough doing other things that week, yes.
Okay. But you found time on the 14th to go down and get your golf clubs at the airport, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I think that's wrong. Yeah, the 13th, wasn't it? Was it the 13th?
Was it the
No, it may
13th?
have been the 14th. Yeah. Yes, that's correct.
You went down with Mr. Kardashian in his car to the airport to get your golf clubs, right?
That's correct.
And you weren't going to play golf that week, were you?
No.
Okay. Were you in some need of having your golf clubs with you?
I was in need to have something to do while I was waiting for my kids.
Okay. And so the thing that you chose to do was to go get your golf clubs at the airport?
Because I was near it, yes. That's correct.
Did it help you at all deal with the pain associated with losing Nicole to drive down to the airport and get your golf clubs?
Don't answer that. That's argumentative.
Well, it's not. He's already said that
He's not going to answer it, so you can just save your speech.
By the way, did you go anywhere else that day with Mr. Kardashian other than the airport to get your golf clubs?
Yes.
Where else did you go?
To my office, to Nicole's house, to his house.
Okay. And the visit to Nicole's house was really a drive-by visit because there was too much media there to stop. Is that true?
That's correct.
And from there you went down to the airport to get your golf clubs, right?
No, from there he just drove, and at one point when we realized that AC was 40 or 50 minutes away, and he said, what do you want to drive? I said, just drive. And we were near the airport. I said, you know, I have some bags at the airport, or a bag at the airport. Let's get by and get it, which we did.
Was there anything that you needed out of that bag?
Did you finish, Mr. Simpson? Had you finished your answer?
Well, so it was a matter of killing time. It was a matter of just trying to do something while I was waiting for my kids to come, and not just to sit and look at the news. It was just a matter to occupy myself while my kids were coming, and we just happened to be in that general vicinity, and my kids were still 40 or 50 minutes away.
Okay. Is there anything that you needed out of your golf bag?
Needed at that moment? No.
Sure. On page 2 at the top of the page of Exhibit 6, you indicate, you make the statement that what's being said, most of it, totally made up. You see that?
Yes.
What specifically are you talking about as made up?
Well, as I told you, I can specifically remember the Avila story, and there were other things being said, and I can't specifically remember them, but there was numerous things being said. I'm sure all the people still have the video of the reports that we can go through it.
Well, I don't know. I want to know what you were thinking when you made that statement. What
That's
were you
what I've told
referencing
you.
when you
Exactly.
said? Excuse me. What were you referencing when you said most of what's been said is totally made up?
What I told you before, that in the reports they were saying various things. I don't recall all those things right now. I believe they may have had to do with Nicole's and my relationship, but various things were being reported, and it was negative. Certainly had negative tones to it.
Well, when you say various things were being reported, what was being reported?
I don't know how many times I have to tell you. I don't recall that week, but I'm sure they have tapes of all of that stuff. I don't recall what it was. I just know it was.
Okay. Well, the reason why I'm asking
sorry.
you.
I don't have a memory of this date, as of this date, what they were. It was so much stuff in this trial that's been negative. I don't recall what I learned after the 17th or before the 17th. I do know that during the course of that week, it was painful to me, some of the things that were being said, and it all added to my state of mind that I was in.
Okay.
And we can go talk about the same thing over and over if you want, but I don't remember anything specific other than Avia at this particular time.
That's the only thing you remember.
Don't
clearly.
answer that. Don't answer that. He's asking innumerable times.
I haven't asked it innumerable times.
Take a few minutes.
Sure.
I mean, using
Is this a good time?
Yeah, it's a good time because he's fading.
David's fading.
What time do you want to start up? Should we go off? Let's go off.
This concludes the deposition of Orenthal James Simpson, Volume 7. The number of videotapes used was 2. We are going off the record, and the time is approximately 4:40.